Kehilat Shalom. So the sixth Aliyah, and I mentioned this this morning in the introduction, but it's only 4 verses, so I'll read it again. For this commandment that I command you today is not too hard for you, neither is it far off. It is not in heaven that you should say, who will ascend to heaven for us and bring it to us, that we may hear it and do it. Neither is it beyond the sea, that you should say, who will go over the sea for us and bring it to us, that we may hear it and do it. But the word is very near to you. It is in your mouth and in your heart, so that you can do it. And the classic rabbinic text that deals with this phrase, Lo v'shamayim pi, it is not in heaven, is from Bava Metzia 59b, the story of the oven of Achnan. Okay, and I'll summarize it. So there's a dispute between Rabbi Eliezer and all the other rabbis in the Beit Midrash about whether this certain oven can be made kosher once it's been treifed up. And Rabbi Eliezer gives all the possible opinions in the world, and the other rabbis say, nah. So Rabbi Eliezer says, if the halacha is according to my opinion, let the carob tree prove it. And the carob tree basically comes strolling down the street. And we don't bring halachic proof from carob trees, right? So Rabbi Eliezer says, okay, then if I'm right, let the stream prove it. And the stream started flowing backwards. Don't bring proof from streams. And so then Rabbi Eliezer says, okay, so let the walls of the Beit Midrash prove it, and they start falling over. So at this point, Rabbi Yeshua has heard enough, and he says, hey, walls, butt out, okay? You don't have a vote in this discussion. So they stop falling down because of their respect for Rabbi Yeshua, but they don't straighten up because of their respect for Rabbi Eliezer. And the Gemara says that they're still at an angle to this day. Of course, to this day was 1,500 years ago, and at some point, the Muslim armies of Babylonia knocked it down anyway, but at least that's what the Gemara says. Okay, so finally, Rabbi Eliezer says, okay, if I'm right, let a heavenly voice prove it, right? And a voice comes out from the heavens and says, why do you disagree with Rabbi Eliezer? The halacha is in accordance with his opinion in every place that he expresses an opinion. And at this point, Rabbi Yeshua gets up and he says, Lo v'shamayim, right? It is not in heaven. Meaning what? What is the Gemara asks, what does it mean that it is not in heaven? And Rabbi Yirmiyahu says, since the Torah was already given at Mount Sinai, we pay no attention to a heavenly voice, as you already wrote at Mount Sinai in the Torah from Exodus, after the majority to incline. And since the majority of rabbis disagreed with that Rabbi Eliezer, the halacha is not in accordance with his opinion, right? In other words, we could say, another way to say this in a kind of more jocular way just occurred to me, is that they had a dispute and they took a vote, and the vote against Rabbi Eliezer was 99-1. Right, so he calls upon God to intervene, and God says, I agree with Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua gets up and says, okay, now it's 99-2. Right? God, but actually it's still 99-1 because God doesn't get a vote. Right? God, right? It's like bringing a quote from the Federalist to prove, and it might be convincing or might not be convincing, but it doesn't make a 5-4 decision into a 5-5 decision, right? Madison doesn't get a vote, right? So years later, Rabbi Natan ran into Eliyahu, not Rabbi Eliyahu the prophet, and said to him, "What did the Holy One blessed be he, do at that time when Rabbi Yehoshua issued his declaration?" And Eliyahu said, he smiled and said, "My children have triumphed over me. My children have triumphed over me," right? In the same way that, I don't know, a parent might be proud of his kid who comes up with something clever, even though, you decided that your kid should be punished, and the kid came up with a clever reason why they shouldn't be punished. All right, that was cute, I won't punish them, right? So God accepts, according to this Gemara, that although the Torah was given by God, right, the interpretation is given over to the rabbis of each generation, right? We don't have a legal system that says, right, if you come to me with a shayla, right, you come to me, all right, it's Pesach, right? And you come to me and you say, "I accidentally used my Pesach dishes the Shabbos before Pesach, and now can I kasher them and still use them for Pesach," right? I should say either yes, no, or I don't know, but let me study it and I'll give you an answer, right? If I say to you, "I don't know, let me go ask God, and then I'll give you an answer," and I come back and I say, "God said, yeah, go ahead," or I come back and I say, "God said, no, what are you, nuts?" Okay, what should you say if I do that? Are you feeling okay? Are you feeling okay? Right? Are you feeling okay? You stop taking your meds, right? Something, right? Because that's not the way the system works, right? The system works by the rabbis of each generation figuring out what to do in that circumstance, right? And we see this, there aren't a lot of pluses to the COVID pandemic. Right? In fact, there's a million plus minuses, right? But if we could say there's a plus Jewishly, we're seeing how the halachic system works, right? Evolving rules. Can you stream on Shabbos? Can you not stream on Shabbos? Right? Can we count a minyan on Zoom? Can we not count a minyan on Zoom? Right? And if you remember, right, the first couple months, we were having services on Zoom, but we said anything that requires a minyan, we don't do. And then the law committee studied it further, and I studied the law committee opinion further. I said, you know what, we can count a minyan on Zoom, right? And nobody said, people might have agreed or disagreed, but nobody challenged. It's one thing to say, I think you're wrong. It's another thing to say, you don't have the right to make that decision, right? Because that is the way the halachic system works, right? And different shuls might do it differently, right? One shul might say, yeah, we count a minyan on Zoom, and another shul might say no, right? Or whatever. And is that a problem? It's not a problem, because each shul is different both in terms of its needs and in terms of the culture of the shul. If you have a more traditional shul, they might not count the minyan on Zoom, right? If you have a shul that's less traditional than us, they might say, you know what, 5 people in the shul and 5 people on Zoom, go out pull out the Torah and read it. Okay? And there's no right or wrong. There's no objective right or wrong. That's the way the system works, right? And it's also, unfortunately, right? So we have some, examples of how the system works or doesn't work. And right, last week I spoke about the lawsuit actually the lawsuit was followed by the Yeshiva University Pride Alliance for them to be recognized on an equal basis with all other clubs. And the courts in New York says, yes, you have to treat them the same way as all other clubs. And they went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court denied their stay because they hadn't exhausted all their remedies in New York yet. And so last Friday, late afternoon, Yeshiva University said, yes, we will treat the Pride Alliance the same way as all other clubs. No more clubs. Right now, everybody's treated equally, right? It's kind of the Alabama 1960s strategy, right? And so earlier this week, a group in New York, a resource center for gay and lesbian Orthodox Jews, Jewish queer youth, said, you know what? We will fund the clubs until this is all worked out, right? And then the Pride Alliance went to the court and said, we will accept a stay on this ruling because we don't want this to be a situation where the gay students are pitted against the straight students, right? And the Frisbee Golf Club said, those gays are taking away our ability to have a Frisbee Golf Club, right? Or whatever, right? I mean, I have to say, if there's a Menschlichkeit contest, right? Gay students and their alliance here, Yeshiva University administration here, right? I think the balance of equities favors the gay students and their allies and not the Yeshiva University. And yesterday, the Wilf Family Foundation, and it is the Wilf campus of Yeshiva University, okay, the Wilf Family Foundation came out and condemned the decision that the Yeshiva University administration did, okay? In the annals of mistakes made by university administrations, this may qualify for the record, in my opinion, okay? Because look, there's no doubt that the halakha continues to forbid certain forms of male homosexual intimacy. Okay, it's going to go up on YouTube, so I don't want to say too much, right? But if a male gay couple comes to me in the unlikely event that they would come to me and say, Rabbi, may we do this according to halakha? The answer is still no, you may not. Okay? I do not think that the Pride Alliance was proposing to do this particular act in club meetings. Okay? If they were, Yeshiva University would be absolutely right in forbidding, right? But it's supposed to be a support group for gay and lesbian students who affirmatively want to fit into the Orthodox community and trying to figure out how to do that, right? And I can't help but contrast this with the fact that the Jewish Theological Seminary has a new dean of the rabbinical school, Rabbi Ayelet Cohen, okay, who back not that long ago, 15, 16 years ago, was almost kicked out of the RA. Why? Because she took a pulpit at Congregation Beth Simchat Torah, which is probably the largest gay and lesbian shul in the world. Okay, and Beth Simchat Torah actually They are basically conservative in practice and liturgy, but were told back then, don't try to join the United Synagogue because they won't take you. Okay, and Rabbi Cohen took the pulpit there and was told by the rabbinical assembly, you can't do it because they're not a United Synagogue shul. And she applied for a waiver and she got a waiver, but the waiver was only 2 years. And then after 2 years, they said you have to leave your pulpit. And anyway, she wasn't kicked out, but she almost was. Okay, and now she's the new dean of the rabbinical school at JTS. And interestingly enough, she herself is straight, right? She's married to a male rabbi, and they've got 5 kids. Okay, but it wasn't even the question of her own sexuality or her own orientation. It was simply being a rabbi who wanted to serve this community, and 17 years ago almost lost her standing as a conservative rabbi, and today is the dean of the rabbinical school at JTS. Okay, so things can change, and I guarantee you that whether it is by court order or whether it is by coming to their senses, eventually Yeshiva University will say, look, these are our students and we have to serve them, okay? And, but, you know, the halacha, it changed, I don't want to say it changes. I mean, that would be heretical. It doesn't change, but it evolves, and its application evolves. And this, you know, we went through this, and the Orthodox community is going through it now. And with God's guidance, things will change. And they never change fast enough for some people, and they change way too fast for other people. And we got to figure out a way to do it. Shabbat Shalom.
Drasha.
Oh, yeah, we continue with the Kaddish before Musaf and the Musaf service 155, then the Shabbat Siddur 428, and the full Siddur, and then we'll say